Welcome to The Leap with Japa, the podcast that bridges continents and connects stories. Join us as we dive into the vibrant world of international education, explore diverse cultures, and share the extraordinary journeys of students far from home. Whether you're dreaming of studying abroad or already embarking on this adventure through other means, Leap with Japa is your companion in navigating the exciting, challenging, and transformative world of global education. Let's leap into today's episode. Hello, good evening. Welcome to today's episode of Leap with Japa. My name is Saheed. So today I'm going to talk about preparing for grad school. So, you've gotten your visa, you've, said your goodbyes, everything is going on fine. But now you're going to prepare for grad school. I'm going to be talking about, first bit is finding accommodation. How do you find accommodation where you're going to stay? The next thing is securing graduate assistantships. Where do I find an assistantship? I'll talk about what that means. And then the last one is, preparing for grad school. What exactly do I need to have set up for me to get into grad school? So that's what we're going to talk about. So the first one is finding accommodation. So one of the things you need to immediately know is you have to stay somewhere. Now, there are usually options for you to stay. Either you want to stay on campus or you want to stay with friends. But one thing that you need to understand is you need to know what state you're going to be in. So do they have public transport? So if they have public transport, how do I get to school? So you need to know, that's the first bit. Does the area you live have public transport? If they do have public transport, you need to then figure out what kind of buses go to this school, what time do the buses leave? That's, you primarily need to know the timing of your classes. So what times do your classes take place? Do they take place in the mornings? Do they take place in the evenings? So most grad schools usually tend to have evening classes because people go to work. But there are some grad schools, my PhD program, for example, when I was going to classes, was in the morning. So you need to know exactly when you're going to be going to classes, which will determine where you're going to stay, which will determine how you're going to get to school. So that's the first bit. Know exactly where, when your classes are. Secondly, I would typically advise that you pick up accommodation outside. Don't do accommodation within the school. One, because the ones within the school it's a business. So they're going to charge you a lot of money because they're trying to make money. It is what it is. So, we've discussed in an episode where you need to figure out your cost of living. So this is on the presumption that you've picked a place that has low cost of living. So that's what we have. That's the first thing you need to do. So now you've figured out what time your classes are. The next thing is where you're going to stay. How far away are you going to stay? So for me, from my own experience, what I did, I went to Prairie View A&M. I found, I did a research on accommodations near the school, and I found a couple of them. And I needed to know how far the school is from the accommodation. It wasn't far, it was walkable. But there's one thing I want you to keep in mind: the weather. So if you're going to be in a place that is pretty far from school, you need to know that is not far from school, but walkable. You need to know what they call winter. Winter is very cold. Forget whatever cold you've been. Walking in winter to class in the evening or even in the morning is brutal hard. So you need to factor that in. If you live in a state where there's no public transport, you have to know that you need a car. You have to figure out how to get a car. So that's one thing you have to know. Where do I get a car? Another thing is you need to reach out to the local community of students. Where are the students living? How can you reach out to them? A typical example would be to look on Facebook groups, on Facebook pages. Reach out to current students, ask them for accommodation options, and then, you reach out to who is in charge. For me, what I did for Prairie View was I found a lady that had a housing, and I filled up a rental agreement. I got someone to help pay for me for the initial deposit. Luckily for me, then PayPal in Nigeria was still working, and I was able to essentially send a PayPal transfer to someone. And so it's always very good to do your research. Please do not just land in the US and assume that is a place for you. It's not good. It's usually very, very embarrassing at first, and also shows lack of preparation because everything here in the system works. Make sure also that you do something within your budget. Please be aware that your bills and your rent are separate. So if you find a place, this place is very cheap, there are some hidden things, so you need to know that the place is very good. Bills and your rent is different. So but if the bill says, it's $400 in all inclusive, ask inclusive of what? Does it include internet? Does it include trash? Does it include light? Does it include gas? You need to know so you can budget properly. So you need to know that. So once you figure out where you're going to stay, you need to use Google Maps to know how you're going to get to school. What are the buses? If you're going to be using buses, what bus card do you need? Do you have a student discount that you can get from the bus? Find out from people. Get a bus pass of some sort. Also, you need to know how you're going to get to the place, how you're going to get after you land in the state, how you're going to get to school, who's going to pick you up from the airport. Usually, if you reach out to resource centers of the international student, they would probably help you. They'll probably have resources, people that pick up people from the airport. No, not people that pick up people, but ISA, International Student Association, will usually have buses that will come pick up people. If you've made connections with fellow Nigerians or people from your country or even other international students, they can also arrange to come and pick you. So you need to know. Very important. Picking you up that day. Okay, once you land, you need to also go shopping for things like a jacket, beddings, pans, plates. You don't need to bring that from your home country. Please get them when you land because you will need them. We'll talk about another episode of taking care of yourself, cooking versus eating out. I wouldn't do that in this episode because there's so much to talk about in that episode. So be aware, those are your accommodation techniques. Make sure you know where you're going to stay. Make sure you know the distance from your school to where you're staying. Make sure you know the bills. The bills are paid every month. Know that you have enough money to cover bills for at least 2 months or 3 months. In my own case, I had to have 2 or 3 months of rent. I was paying, I believe it was $500 every month for a 1-bedroom. It came inclusive with everything, so I didn't need to pay gas or light or internet, so that was good. So make sure you make sure your lease agreements are very important. Do not sign something you do not understand. Thank you to ChatGPT. You can chuck in your lease agreement into a ChatGPT and you can find out the conditions. Make sure you know that. Also, make sure you know who you're probably going to be staying with. Are you going to be staying with undergrad students? Are you going to be staying with international students? It goes a long way because undergrad students tend to party a lot. So you need to know what the structure is like. You need to also know, being someone that's an international student that is studying in the evening, you need to know how you're going to walk around in the evenings. Are you going to be working from school late? Are you going to be a library person? I never went to the library. I personally don't think libraries work for me. I study at home while watching Netflix. I'm sorry, but that's how I study. So I'm always at home. So you need to know if you're someone that studies in the library, how late can you be? Always make sure that you have a form of ID on you when you're walking around in the US. Never walk around in the US without having some form of ID. Yes, that means you need to carry your international passport around until you get a driver's license. We'll talk about the driver's license. The next bit is graduate assistantships. Now, is this notion that I always get from people who call me and say, I want a scholarship. I want to be able to come and study in the US and I want a scholarship. I will tell you right now, everybody in the US wants that same scholarship. Who do you think they're going to give it to? You have to be on ground for you to get a scholarship. So what do I say about assistantships? You cannot get graduate assistantships by writing the well, you can if you have very good grades and you have very good research experience. You might be able to get an offer. But for me, I didn't get an offer for graduate assistantship until I came to the US. And how did I do that? I kept on emailing different professors. I went through their profiles, I saw what they had worked on, and I kept on asking, hey, I want to work on this project with you. So there's one thing I'm going to say right now about getting assistantships, and that word is persistence. There is no way someone is going to take you serious if you do not persist. It is you that wants a graduate assistantship. It is you that knows how important it is. You have to fight to get an assistantship. And how do you get one? Go and read up the research of what your professor is working on. If you have the skills, requisite skills, reach out to them. My advisor was working on Apache Spark project, video project. Hey, I've done Python, I've done Spark, I know how to do this. And I kept on hounding until I got one. So what are assistantships? So this is the first thing. A graduate assistantship is not a scholarship. It's an assistantship. So for Prairie View, where I went to, international students had a particular fixed amount of money. I don't know how much the fee is now, but I think it was around $7,000 every semester for 3 classes. With an assistantship, with a graduate assistantship, I got $3,500 paid off, and I had to pay only $3,500. With an assistantship, you get $1,500. So that's how it works. So you need to know how to get them. And usually what you need to do is to go onto the professor's profile and read up on what they're working on. When I mean read up, I don't mean glance. I mean download the project they're working on, put it up on your computer, run the experiments, have some insights. You need to bring value to the table. It's an assistantship. It can be a research assistantship or a graduate assistantship. For me, I did some research, I taught some class. An advantage Nigerian international students have is the command of English. So typically what I've noticed, and I don't know if this is still the case, is Nigerian students tend to be given classes to teach than their Chinese counterpart because they speak better English than their international Chinese counterpart. So you would tend to do your graduate assistantship as like a teaching assistantship, which is fine. You just need the money. You need tuition waiver to bring down your fees, and then you need to get paid. You would get paid a good amount. So use networking to your advantage. Speak to the graduate coordinator. Ask questions. Make sure you keep on hounding on wanting an assistantship, and you will typically get it. Lastly, what I want to talk about, I don't know if it's lastly, but the third point is preparing for grad school. Now, it sounds counterintuitive. I'm already in grad school, but there's one thing most people do not know. Once you start your grad school, you're going to graduate. And you need to start making sure you graduate well. So you need to know what are the classes you're taking. Do not let anyone give you classes to take. You're a graduate student, not an undergrad student. You should have an idea and a plan of what you want to do. So, what are the classes you want to take? What are the research opportunities that you want to explore? You need to know how to do that. So, an example for me, when I came in, I knew I wanted to take analysis of algorithms, I wanted to take computer architecture, and I wanted to take, I can't remember the last one I took, but I took 3 grad classes. And the reason why is because if you don't state that, they would assign any class to you that you must take if you're not mentally prepared for those classes. You can do that, but you need to be able to. You can decide what you want to take. So that's an adjustment you have to make, a social adjustment. Like, hey, this is the class I want to take. Sometimes he might say, your graduate coordinator might say, no, you don't have this prerequisite class. You need to take this class. insist that you want to take a particular sequence of classes, research why you are going to that school. Look at the coursework that they've done. Look for the assignments of the past that you can plug into. So you need to make those cultural and social adjustments. You need to also know how to manage your time wisely, because now you have so a full-time student is a student that takes the minimum number of classes to be considered full-time. As an international student, you cannot take less than the minimum classes. So you have to manage your time well, because there's a time commitment to your grad classes and there's a time commitment to your graduate assistant classes. So you need to effectively plan your time. You need to, so if you're going to be someone that's going to be taking a bus to school, you need to know where the bus times are. You need to know how long it takes to walk from your house to the bus station. You need to know how long the bus will take to go to where you're going. You need to know how long it will take for you to walk from when they drop you off to your class. You cannot say you're late. You have to plan appropriately. You need to make sure that you adjust your mindset. Everyone is time-based here. Everyone wants to do things quickly and fast. No one has time for slackers. If you do not step up for most of these things, you are going to get dropped like hot potato. So you need to know when, to step up your things. Because everything is, you have to make sure you keep your grades. So you cannot fail any of your classes. Your full-time classes, you have to be making considerable progress in your grad studies. You need the job as well to pay your bills. Mind you, remember you had 2 or 3 months of money when you're coming in. That means you need to have a grad assistantship job if you don't have enough cash buffer. That money, that salary from the grad assistantship helps you to pay your bills, so you can keep the oil going pretty much. So I hope that covers us. So that's how you prepare for grad school. I hope this has been meaningful. To summarize, we talked about finding accommodation process, making sure that you find the right place for you to stay, how to get to school, where to live, how to get a car, if you have a community that can help you with that. It depends on where you are living. We talked about the garage assistantship, how to get one, making sure you persist with researchers and people that do give out these assistantships. The department also gives out some of these assistantships, so sometimes they do have some of these available. And you need to also make sure that you network with people, find out what they're doing, find out where the opportunities are. Don't act like you're an island. Always make sure you ask questions. Last, we talked about grad school, picking the right classes, knowing what classes you want to do, making sure you adjust accordingly to your time, making sure you get to work early, making sure you deliver on your grades, and things like that. So I hope this has been quite encouraging for you. This has been my story. This is how I settled into grad school. These were the small nuts and bolts that I had to tweak to get in here and to making sure that I landed appropriately. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think about this episode. Thank you very much, and thanks for listening. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Leap with Jackma. I hope it brought you valuable insights and stories that resonate with your journey. If you have any thoughts to share, questions, or want to send a voice note with your feedback, please visit our website at leapwithjackpa.io. You will find a contact from there. I would love to hear from you and feature your voice in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform, some of which are Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Player FM. Your subscriptions and reviews help us grow and reach more listeners, and I truly appreciate each one of them. Also, check out our merch store on leapwithjackma.io website for some cool t-shirts and hoodies. Perfect show for showing your support for the show. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll dive even deeper into the experiences and challenges of international education and careers. Until then, keep leaping forward, and thanks again for being part of the Leap with Jackpa community.